throws, and it's intercepted. It's intercepted by number 22. That's Clifton. He's got the left edge. Turns on the Jets. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play. Up to a running back. That's Ferrante over to the right side. He comes back up the middle. He's got room. One man to beat. He turns on the Jets. There he goes. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Football with Coach Val. I'm your host, Gil Valtierra, the voice of Calaveras football. This episode, we dive into a new topic, which is the spouses of football coaches. You heard me right, folks. I am got four beautiful, lovely ladies here in the studio with me today. Our guests today are Michelle Clark, Kate Hust, Lehua Mosa, and Anna Valtierra. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. All doing good.
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you
for having us.
Michelle?
Good. Thank you for having us on.
Good. I'm glad you guys are here. A little background for our listeners. Michelle is the wife of current defensive coordinator at Calaveras High School, Doug Clark, who was on a podcast going over defense not too long ago. Michelle works for Tuolumne County. Kate is the significant other of legendary line coach Scott Anderson of Calaveras High. Kate works for the HR in Calaveras County. Lehua is the spouse of current head varsity football coach at Calaveras High, Coach Manny Mosa, and she is the current tax collector for Calaveras County. So you guys better be caught up on your taxes, or she'll come find you. And then, of course, last but not least, is Anna. She is my wife, and she works for the Resource Connection here in Calaveras County. Ladies, let's just, doesn't matter who goes first, but how long has your spouse, significant other, have been coaching football?
I will go first. Husband's been coaching for 24 years.
24 years. Yay, that was right.
Manny has been coaching for about 21 years, and I have been with him for 14 of those years.
Wow. Okay. Kate?
Scott has coached for over 30 years.
Man, that's why I said legendary coach. He's been there forever. They're going to name a building after him, I'm sure. Michelle?
Yeah, so Doug, I think, started coaching long before he met me, actually. I think the first time I ever knew him to coach was at Sonora High School. He was helping out with wrestling. But since we've been together, it's been about 24 years going on 25.
Okay, so I hear 14, 30, 24, 25. So a lot of years experience in this room as far as having that other person in your life coaching football. Ladies, let's talk about that a little bit. So typically football ends in November, depending on, how far you make it into the playoffs. So November through May is typically the off season. I know by June, coaches, are back at it, prepping for the up and coming season. So 6 months on, 6 months off, essentially, is what you're looking at. And my question is how do you handle having a spouse gone for 6 months out of the year? And as my wife even says, well, even when you're here, you're not here because you're in your laptop breaking film down and all that good stuff. So how do you deal with that dynamic of it? Anyone?
Well, I'd say it gets easier as the season goes on. At the beginning of the year, it's an adjustment. It was one thing when it was just me, but now with the kids around, they're looking for dad, and dad's out on the football field. So it's been fun to watch the kids be excited to see him go out there. So I think it's gotten easier over the years for me. But yeah, always an adjustment at the beginning of the year. And then at the end of the year, it's like he's just home after work, and it's also an adjustment.
Okay. Anybody else?
I agree. It is hard to get in the swing of football. You're used to having him home all the time, and then football, so you're used to having him gone all the time. And then when football's over, he's back home again all the time. So it's a hard adjustment to make.
Okay.
So it's funny because when Doug and I, first started dating, I pretty much knew that this was what he wanted to do. That's why he was getting into teaching, was for the coaching aspect of everything. And so honestly, I don't know that I really had a choice because it was actually part of my proposal when we got engaged was, if you can put up with my coaching and all of the other stuff, then will you marry me? And I guess I just kind of had to go there. But I think before we had kids, kind of the same thing as Lehua was saying, I think it was, easier. And then once we started having kids, it would just got a little bit harder. Our daughters were 18 months apart. So sometimes I felt like I was, a single mom. But I do think that because he was a teacher, they were able to kind of hang out with him on the football field. And so, they grew up around it and loved every second of it. And so that made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But he lost a lot of sleep because I feel like he was up till 2 or 3 in the morning. And yeah, it just stressed out a lot. And so, that was probably a challenge. But I don't know. I think you just kind of adjust.
Okay. No, I can't let this just, sweep this under the rug and just we'll walk by this one. It was part of the proposal.
It was part of the proposal.
Okay, so as opposed to just like on a knee, I love you so much, will you marry me? It was like, okay, so as long as I'm allowed to coach football.
Right. So, it was kind of like, are you going to be able to handle, if you can handle this and you can, will you marry me? So I guess I had to say yes or no. So yeah,
so
it's part of the proposal.
You kind of knew going in. It's like, well, he did stipulate up front.
He pretty much did. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Ann?
Well, I think I can speak for all the years that you've been coaching. It's always tough. I would say the first 2 weeks, whether you have kids or no kids, because you're just on this schedule of seeing the person that you're with all the time. And then he's not there. Even sometimes you find yourself having dinner alone and a lot of things alone. But eventually you get used to it, and then it's back to normal. Football. And then after it's all over and said and done, then it's like, okay, you're back in the picture with kids, with life, with
right.
You miss so many Halloweens with the kids.
It is in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah. And our anniversary as well. But yeah, I think for me, the hardest part was just adjusting, just making that adjustment for the first 2 weeks. And then once I made the adjustment, I'm like, cool. And then when you're back, I'm like, well, what are you doing here? Like, I'm good. But then I'm like, okay, let's get back into the room. Dad's here. Mom doesn't have to take her dad hat on and off. Dad's got, and then they'll get a little, the girls would get a little, like, Dad can't tell us what to do because Mom's been doing it for the last, 5 or 6 months. So I would have to deal with that side and aspect of it as well. But, eventually over the years, we just got into the routine of, okay, it's football season. Let's do this.
So it seems like the common thread here is, if I'm hearing it all correctly, is in the beginning, it's tough because there's that transition, but then you get used to it. And then, they're gone, they're doing their thing. Does that hold true with, like, in the first couple of years when they were coaching, and then compared to when it's 20 years later when they're coaching? Was it easier later in the coaching career than it was in the beginning of the coaching career?
It's never easy for me.
No.
I think it's changed over the years. So in the beginning, it was just me and Manny. We didn't have kids. We could, spend time together on, I guess, Saturdays were the one day that we would have available together. Over the years, with the kids now, it's a little different because, Ethan plays football, so we're busy Saturday. Everly's doing soccer, and the normal day-to-day life with 2 kids. But we've adjusted. We shifted some anniversaries up, celebrating. We've planned vacations for off season, so it's gotten easier for us to do that. And like I said, the kids are understanding. So during football season, Ethan has gone to practice with Manny for
plenty
years.
of times. Yes.
All the football players
Yes.
were kind of in charge of keeping an eye on him when he was little and running around.
Yeah.
But no, I think in general, it's hasn't gotten any easier over the years. It's just changed. I think we're able to adjust better now than having having the kids ask where daddy is every
Gotcha.
night when we're going to
Gotcha.
bed.
That's funny, Michelle, you mentioned about the kids growing up on the field, because I coached a lot of years with Doug and with all those guys. And I remember Emma, by the way, runner-up female athlete of the year, her freshman year. Got to throw that out there. So great job. Congratulations to Emma Clark. Her is just a little child running around, throwing the football around, just like Ethan, as we're doing practice. So they were growing up out there while Dad was out there coaching. So can certainly see all of that. Let me ask you guys this. When football season's coming, do you guys plan like your own things that maybe you wouldn't do, when it's the off season, when that your spouse is back home? And then how involved are you during the football season? Right? So, are you like going to every game? Do you maybe just only go to the home games? And then has that involvement maybe changed over the years compared to like his first couple of years coaching compared to now it's 20 years later? So I know there's a lot. There's like 3 questions in that one question, but let's dissect it a little bit.
Does anyone have hobbies other than football during football season? No.
I feel like I think
the studio audience loved that one too, Layla.
I think it's changed over the years for me. I think that, but again, I think my children were so involved. They love it. They knew all the players because they were here all the time. And so they would want to go to the games. And so I felt like early on, I'd be celebrating with the coaches afterwards. And then once we started having kids, I feel like, we were there till the very end. And then I would take them home, get them ready for bed and those kinds of things. And I feel like then I started to know the kids because my kids were growing up with them. And so, of course, I wanted to be involved in it. I mean, I think we've always just been a very sports-oriented family anyway. So I love the competition and I love the extracurricular activities. And it was something to do. Now that, my kids are growing up and, they kind of are doing other things. And, I do think it's nice to have my own hobbies. And sometimes, I might not make a home game. I always made sure I made the home games at least. But, I felt like I was a diehard trying to make all of the games earlier on. And now I think I'm more I'm decreasing my involvement a little bit more. I still love it. But yeah, I would say that, now I might plan some things that I will do with my own friends or have my own hobbies or go hang out with the girls doing something else. So
Sure.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit.
I think it's interesting that when I look around, there's a difference. And I think this is why this is the perfect group to talk about these types of things, because for Anna and ourselves, our kids are grown and out of high school now. They're in their 20s, right? But they were, in their high school. They went to the high school I was coaching at, so she kind of remembers all of those times. You have 2 daughters that are out of school now, or at least out of high school and then on to college. And then your youngest is a freshman now. And so there's a little bit of a younger age group. Yours are still in elementary school, Lehoa. And Kate, you don't have any kids right now. So that interesting dynamic on how it's different for no kids, young kids, high school kids that are out of high school. I think it's interesting to see that dynamic, how it plays out in those different stages of life.
Absolutely. I agree.
So what about any of you other ladies about during football season? Do I go do my own thing? How involved am I? And has that changed over the years from when it started till later in their careers?
It has changed. I agree with Michelle, for me.
Mm-hmm.
But now that the girls are older, in their 20s, married, and going to be getting married soon, they still ask, how is the game? How is the season? How is the football going? So even though they're not living here and they're married and they're on their own, they still want to know how Dad's doing. What was the score? How did they play against Sonora or Somerville? They still want to know. So I still let them know, or you'll text message them and let them know. So even though they're not living here at home with us anymore, they still are in the loop of things.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. And I know for you, when I first started coaching, you came to a lot of the games. And then as the years went on, and then when the girls were in high school, of course, that was easy because they're there in the school. So that's simple.
And one of them cheered.
And one of them was a cheerleader. But then when they're out of school, now your involvement, I still continued to coach. That started to diminish. Is it more reasons other than just, well, now my kids are gone, so I don't need to anymore?
No, I think it was just a personal choice. I just
Yeah.
thought, I've devoted my time, and I love football. I still love watching football, even on TV. But yeah, it's like Michelle said, it's okay to go hang out with some friends, or
Just
it's okay to go
different stage now, ready to pivot and do something different.
And,
Okay.
and we're still, in the loop. I still text you or tell you where I'm at.
You're on a football podcast right now. How about you, Layla?
At this point, I think it would be impossible to not make at least the home games with my two kids. Ethan's obsessed with football, so that we got that one right. Everly too. She loves being on the field. She loves running out there after the games and seeing her dad and throwing the ball. And I'm at a different stage. You guys are past the little kid age, but for me, it's just at the beginning. We have a 9 and a 6-year-old, so I think for the foreseeable future, we will be at every single home game.
Yeah, Ethan wouldn't have it any other way.
No other way.
Right.
No.
Right.
And I love it. I like watching Ethan out there growing up with Manny, and Everly having those memories with her dad too.
Absolutely.
So
I think it's great too.
I have a really cute picture of them together from when he was like 2 years old, standing next to his dad on the sidelines, and it's cute to see him now down there being the ball boy and everything. He loves it.
Yeah. Kate?
I try and be as involved and supportive as possible. But I do have to say, over the last few years, I don't make it to every game. Anna taught me early on that it's important to have me time and do you, and don't feel obligated to go, and you don't have to be perfect to make every game. But I do. I try and go to the home games. I love it. It's involvement. I think he's happy if I'm there. It's just fun to kind of watch the whole football family that's there, and I enjoy it. I do enjoy home games.
That's great. I can tell you for a fact, I know he's happy when you're there, because one of the things I'll do too is I'll look up and, is she there, is she here, and that kind of stuff. So even though we're grown men and we're coaches and all that stuff, we're like little kids too. We look up there and who's here? Who's here to watch today?
I feel like we put in all the time and listening to our husbands talk about practice and players and plays are going to run, and it's nice to see the end result. The final day.
Yeah. How's the rest of my weekend going to go? Well, based on what happens on Friday night,
Very good point.
right? Is he going to be in a good mood on Saturday, or am I going to have to be like, uh-oh?
Yeah, we don't have that luxury anymore of letting it sink in. We've got soccer and football first thing in the morning for the kids now, so
it's like,
back at it.
pick up your bootstraps, let's go.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Nice. So, I know this next question is pretty, I know there's going to be a lot there, but I'm just interested to hear the different answers. What kind of sacrifices have been made over the years as far as, during football season, the things that have been missed? And I'll even share one for me. So I know there's going to be things like, holidays. Anna mentioned earlier how many times I missed Halloween because the kids were out there trick-or-treating, but it fell on a Friday night, and it was an away game, and I was somewhere else. So holidays, birthdays, kids' sports, weddings, those types of things. Chime in whenever you have an answer. What types of things have been sacrificed over the years?
All of it.
All the above.
So be specific. Pick one that really is on the top of your list. I remember this. And
Well, we'll jump into Halloween because that's right in the middle of football season. But every year, I try to get off work a little bit early, get the kids ready. And then it's been nice to see. Usually, the last few years, it's fallen on just a practice day. So he will get off early enough to at least come and meet us as we're walking around neighborhoods. And that's been nice. But yeah, before that, it's a commitment. And I understand that it's a commitment to the team. And you can't ask players to show up if you're not showing up yourself. So he takes that very seriously.
Sure.
But yeah, weddings. One wedding in particular, one of my best friends had a wedding on a day that you guys had a scrimmage down in Modesto, and that was the one hard line I drew. I said, I want you there. And he did. He showed up, and it was probably one of the funnest weddings and evenings I've had with my husband. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since we're on the wedding thing, I'll share you one that I know I've done in the past. So, and it was in the beginning of my coaching career. I want to say I was the head freshman coach at Mission San Jose High School. This is mid 90s. And a very good friend of mine that I grew up with asked me to be the best man in his wedding. And I told him no. And the reason why I told him no was his wedding was on a game night. And in order to be his best man in his wedding, I would have had to miss the football game. And so my rationale was, I'm the head football coach, right? I have the commitment that I've made to the entire team's parents, that community, the amount of people that I would have let down on that side of it by going to the wedding compared to I may have let a few people down. I had to weigh the differences, and I told them no, and I went to the football game and coached the game.
Now on that, I'll add, when you were coaching at Mission San Jose and I was at the hospital and we had our second daughter, he also missed a game. That was an important day, but he got a lot of grief from...
I missed a practice.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it was a practice.
On that?
That
was a big deal.
Yeah, I missed a practice. It was a big week. The game that week was against a big rival. Tough opponent. You want to be there every day. Well, obviously, I'm not going to be there the day my daughter's born. And so I was there. I went to the hospital, so I didn't go to practice that day. It wasn't a game. But the very next day, when I went back to practice after my daughter was born, the head coach wanted to have a little sit down with me and lied into me about me not being at practice. And I, let's just say, more than reciprocated the effort right back at him. And his wife found out about that interaction. And I think at the end of the season party, she came to me and she high-fived me. She goes, "Good job putting him in his place. How dare him be mad at you for being at the birth of your daughter?" Holy, she was just totally upset with him.
That's a hard line.
Right. So what else? What else was missed?
I would say kids sports. But it's funny because Madison was born on October 1st. And it was actually weird if you think about this. Is so crazy, but it was prior to cell phones and good service. So we got a pager.
Yes.
And he had a pager for when I went into labor because he was on the football field and he was so worried that he was not going to, because I was giving birth in Sonora. And I work in Sonora. And so I went into labor while I was at work and I had to page him. And he was on the football field, but he did make it home and I didn't have her for another 21 hours.
So let me ask you, did you throw 911 on the back of that page?
I can't even remember. I think who knows how I said. I just think it's funny that I had to page him. It was like a real life pager.
That's like hilarious as far as time stamping. Like,
I know.
When was this? When did that happen?
I'm feeling so old right now.
That's hilarious.
But I don't, even with Madison's birthday being on the 1st, I feel like I feel like we just scheduled it so he could always be there. I mean, you just had to kind of strategically plan, right? But yeah, Halloween, but kids sports. And I think that's actually been the toughest thing for Doug. He doesn't want to miss.
Right.
And he missed a lot. So once the girls got really heavy into sports, it wasn't just on Saturdays anymore and they were playing travel softball. I was driving him to Lake Elsinore. I was driving him here, there, and everywhere because he had football. And I know that sometimes you get a little bit frustrated, especially when you're leaving a football game at 10 p.m. and headed to Lake Elsinore and getting down there at 3 o'clock in the morning. You might be cussing out your husband a little bit. But no, but I think that, but I feel the girls were always so supportive. They knew, and they never... They were always very supportive of him, but it made him feel guilty.
Yeah, I mean, we want to do it all, right? We want to do it all, but you can't. But I think that's important, really, for us, speaking on the coaching side, knowing that you're supported, right? It's not ideal, but at least you're supported in what's going on. So, all right, well, let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about. So all your spouses, they're very good friends of mine. I've coached with them for a very long time, many, many years. And I think I know the answer to this question if you ask me about it, but I'm interested to hear what your guys' perspective is, which is why do you think they coach and have coached for so long? knowing that, we just talked about a lot of the things that we've sacrificed, right? So why are they doing it, and why are they continued and been doing it for so long? What do you think the answer is for your individual situation?
I truly think it's his passion. It's what he loves deep down in his heart. It's community involvement. He loves making a difference in the kids. Once they graduate high school, and we'll see them out and about at the grocery store or at dinner or something, and they come up and they go, "Hey, coach, God, what are you doing? How have you been?" He just loves it. He gets a big smile on his face, and it makes his entire night.
Yeah.
It's what his heart is into.
I can see that. Michelle?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons why. I think that when you play sports and you've got that competitive drive, I think, and you had such good experiences with coaching and recognize how important good coaching is. And just staying involved in that, obviously as we get older, we're not playing sports like we used to, right? So I think the competition aspect of it, I think just being able to, I don't know, maybe make a difference, be an inspiration to somebody who maybe didn't have that or wouldn't have had that if they didn't have somebody in their life to do. I mean, I think about my time growing up, and I was very fortunate and have had a blessed life, but I think I learned a lot from the coaches that I have had, and I was so fortunate to have really good coaches and so many and so I think just having those experiences, wanting to stay in that commitment. I think also for Doug, he loves this strategy. I've always said, you should have done, why didn't you do something in sports analytics or something, right? This guy literally will watch film. It's enjoyable to him. He will break things down for hours, and it's just like a passion, like Kate says, right? He just lives for that kind of stuff. I mean, with anything, even with the softball, this guy knows what softball team we're going up against, what players are doing what, and I think he just loves that aspect of it. So there's just so many reasons why I think that he does do that. And, he did have this coach that I think inspired him his whole life. And he was like, this is what I want to do. And so, I mean, maybe he would say different, but I know he's spoken very highly of Roger Canepa, who, was a huge inspiration and influence on him. And so I think that's why. So many different reasons.
Yeah. No, I think you mentioned some great ones, and, I can relate to a lot of them. How about you, Leha?
I think the same thing for Manny. He loves the sport, everything about it. He's very competitive. He's weirdly, he has so much patience to deal with high school boys. I don't typically. I mean, he's a pretty patient man in general, but he does good with the high schoolers. He loves it. Same thing, see him out and everyone's calling him coach and all the things. I think kind of a new passion that he's had is seeing how much his son also loves being out there. I think that's kind of a new thing for him. But before, I'd see the same thing. Has a good few really good coaches as he was growing up that he respects, that he, I think, got a really good look at what it was to be a good man. And he is, I think, the exact same thing for some of these kids out there.
Yeah. I know this is kind of weird. You're going to tell me why I coach for so long, right?
You love football, you love sports, and you love inspiring people, and you love those nice big speeches. And
you're talking about pregame, right before the game?
Pregame, halftime game. It's inspiring for you. And you inspire kids and they inspire you.
Yeah.
So the inspiration and the love and the passion. And like Michelle said, the analytics, that go into that during the week. And then the videos you guys all watch on Sundays,
and watch.
24/7.
Thursday night.
Thursdays, whenever, 7 days a week, it's football.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all of it. But I think that the inspirational things that happen during practice, during games, during opposing teams, just everything about the sport itself, or sports, like Michelle said, it's very inspiring, and it's life.
Yeah, I think that's probably because now I'm going 2 years, right, of being not coaching, and the biggest thing I've missed in that time is that human connection, right? That sitting with a player and helping him out and finding out his problems, helping him overcome those things, those types of things definitely is something I miss. Layla, you look like you're chomping at the bit to say something.
I was going to say another reason why I think all of our husbands really enjoy coaching and have done it for so long is because of each other.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great point.
They all, when you get them in a room together, you can't get a word in. They're all talking football. They're all talking, strategy and this and that. And they're all have a really good connection with each other. And I think that's also why our husbands have been coaching for so long together.
Yeah.
They're a really good group. They work well together. They
A lot
bounce
of
each other's
respect
off
for each other.
bounce
Agreed.
ideas off each other, and also listen to each other, which with each one of them individually may be a different story, but all of them respect each other enough to
Yeah, I think Scott didn't have this experience till he left the Amador. I know Doug's been at Calaveras pretty much his entire coaching career. I've gone to a few different schools. So I've been on different coaching staffs, and I can tell you right now from my own personal experience, coaching, with Scott and Manny and Doug and me and Jason Weatherby, that crew of guys to me was like an all-star crew of like any one of those guys can be a head coach and go run their own program. And for them to be all together on the same staff and working together cohesively was the best staff that I've ever been a part of. Like normally you'll go to a school and there might be like one guy that's like that and all the rest you're trying to get them on board. And this was the one place I coached at that was like, wow. It's like everybody was on board and it was really good.
I think it's interesting because when Doug decided he wanted to be a head football coach and then decided, he just wanted to be a part of the girls and just felt like he couldn't commit 100%. I said it 100%. I know that he lost a lot of sleep over that because he was like, who is going to take this on, right? And that was really hard for him to make that decision. And when, Mosa decided, he was like, heck yeah.
Right.
I think that is like, it is so true. Lots of respect and just knows that, these kids will be left in some really good hands if like he wasn't going to be able, because that's very important, I think, when
Definitely.
you've been doing something for so long and your heart and passion are in it for like who you are coaching with, I think truly matters. And I do agree that this core group has really, I would agree. I think that's what keeps them all going for sure.
Definitely. Anything else on that? No? So knowing what you know now through all your experience from when your spouses first started coaching to 20 years later, or however many years later, and all the missed practices and the missed games and Halloweens and all that stuff, what kind of advice would you give to another young woman who's married to a football coach and they're just getting started? What kind of advice would you give to that young woman based on all of your experience and what you know now?
I have so much advice to give.
Let's hear it.
Just kidding. No, somebody else start.
I think Anna's was the best. Do you get, support your husband, and we obviously all love it. We like watching you guys coach and love watching you guys do what you're passionate about, but also make some time to do things for yourself. Again, I'm in a different phase in my life where I have little ones, so a little harder for me to do that. But yeah, as we get older, Manny's in his second year now of being the head football coach, and we got a lot of years ahead of us, hopefully, of doing this. And as we get older and the kids get older, I think at some point I'm gonna be interested in maybe getting a hobby. But for now, I'm happy with supporting him and what he's doing.
Well, being a mom is a full-time job, and along with your full-time job, and along with being the spouse of a football coach, we've talked about all the things that goes along with that. So, okay. So, what Anna had said, find something for yourself as well.
In all honesty, the balls are going to drop. You're not going to have a good day at work sometimes. The kids are going to be sick and there's going to be a football game. All those 3 things might be going on, or 4 at the same time. So it's okay to do you. It's okay to go to Starbucks and hook yourself up with a drink. It's okay to read a magazine or do something that you got 15 minutes to yourself so you can kind of collect your thoughts and pull yourself back together and get back in the ring of life, job, mom, wife, supportive spouse, or significant other. But it's really important to realize that everything's not always perfect. It's going to fall. The balls will drop and you're going to be by yourself. And you're going to have to pick up those balls and you're going to have to just keep going.
Okay. Kate?
I think a lot of times as women, we try and take it all on ourselves. We try and make perfect everything. We want a perfect house. We want a perfect career. We want everybody to look in and see that we're perfect. And we have to realize that we're not. We can only do so much. I try and be supportive. I try and support him in every way, shape, or form, whether it's be there, go do something, bring food to the football players, whatever it may be. But it's important to take a step back and realize that, you know what, I'm overwhelmed or I'm tired or I don't want to do that. And it's important to say, I need a break for me. I've helped you out, but I need some me time too. And I think oftentimes as women, we forget that.
Okay. All right. So you'll tell that young lady spouse that's just getting started to take time for herself. Don't get you're going to make mistakes. It's fine. That's okay.
Absolutely.
I would also say sit by yourself in the stands because you're going to hear every single comment everybody has about
I
your
was hoping
husband.
someone would bring that up.
I was going to say that.
We've just been talking about how much, I say we sacrifice, but the whole family sacrifices, the coaches do,
Everybody.
and that's one thing is you sit in the stands and you have someone that, is just watching 2 hours of what's happening. And you, in your mind, are sitting there going, my husband's been out there, all week. And, he's missed this and he's missed that. And he also has a full-time job and a company to run or whatever the case may be. And it's hard sometimes to not take it a little personally when you're the one watching them do all these things and trying to be in the stands being a cheerleader for them and then
hearing some
else.
knucklehead up there going, what an idiot, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah. And so, I think that's one of the things, but I would say sit by yourselves or sit with the fellow wives that are around because they understand and kind of keep you grounded a little bit.
I like that. I think that's great advice.
Leho, I was going to actually say the same thing. And I actually am a very competitive person and can get pretty feisty if anybody knows me.
No.
So I don't really hold back. And so I spent a lot of times sitting over, down, or standing at the very end because sometimes I feel like you hear things and I just think that, I don't really want to, there's just so many critics, right? And you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. And, so because I feel I've coached, I've lived around sport, and I just want to respond to it all. And so I have a really hard time. And so I agree with Lehua, try to just block that stuff out because no matter what, you're going to have critics. And, you guys are fabulous coaches, and I feel like if we still have the coaching that you guys have in the stand, in high school, we're fortunate because there's so much bad coaching out there.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think for me too, as far as giving advice, I think a relationship is give and take, right? I feel like as long as it's equal. Doug was always my biggest fan. I played sports in college and he clipped every news article. He knew that that's what made me happy and he supported me through all of it and was my biggest fan. Again, knew every stat about everybody I played. But so I just know that when we started dating and when we, obviously we've had our moments, especially once we started getting kids and you start kind of feeling yourself get resentful or frustrated and you have your moments, right? But I do think his happiness matters to me. And if this makes him happy, then, support him in it, be there. You don't have to do everything, but You know, like, I think that's what I would expect if I have something that I love and want to do. And, you know, like, I would expect him to be there. And, like, so I think as long as it's give and take and it's equal, and I feel like, you know, make sure that, like, that's what's happening. I think that that's what's so incredibly important. You know, I think it's important to communicate with one another when you are feeling it, because I think, like, if you don't, then you get resentful. But I think that, you know, this is not something that I feel like you guys take lightly. And again, it is a commitment. You're committing to how many youth, right? Like so many, and coaches. And so I just think, like, it's not when, you know, it's not just about Doug. It's about all of these other kids on the field. It's about the coaches that he'd be letting down. And I think you guys take that very serious. So I just think it's really important that, you know, like, going into this, you just really take into consider all facets of, like, what is going on in the game and coaching, right? There's so much planning, and there's so many people you're committed to. And so it's not like he'd be just letting, you know, like, he'd be letting a whole bunch of people down.
Right.
So anyway, I think that's important to remember. When you get mad or frustrated, or you feel like you're a single mom. And there's been times, let me tell you. But, you know, his happiness is always very important. So
I think you brought up something that prompted me to remembered. I had in a gentleman here not too long ago. His name's Pete Morelli. And he's retired now, but he was the principal at St. Mary's High School for a very long time. He was a referee for a very long time. And he was actually an NFL referee. He was a referee in the NFL while he was principal at St. Mary's. And one of the things I asked him about was balance. How do you have a full-time job? You know, you're during the week at school, and next thing you know, on Sunday you're in the East Coast refereeing an NFL football game on Sunday, but on Monday you got to be back in California and back to work. So it was a lot. But what he said is he had a supportive wife, and then he understood that when the season was on, he was gone. Work, football, literally gone, right? He's across the other side of the country. But when the season ended and he was back home, he couldn't just go golfing with his buddies and take off, right? Because he knew he had some time to make up for. And you brought that up about there needs to be a balance, Michelle. And I couldn't agree more. I think one of the things I'd tell that new up and coming coach, not just the wife, make sure that when the season's over, you go make up for some of that lost time. Don't just, now I can go golfing now. No, now you need to go spend time with your wife and spend time with your family, because you've got some time to make up for. And that's what Pete told me, because he would learn that I have some time to make up for.
And sometimes I think you have to communicate that, right? Like, sometimes we forget, right? And so I think it's important not to, like, always expect it, but to, like, communicate. I need this from you.
Right.
So I think that's very important, you know. I mean, I'm very good at making sure that I communicate my needs.
And then as far as the hecklers up in the stands, one of my first head coaches taught me, you know, he says, Gil, if you're going to be a football coach for a long time, you've got to get thick skin, right? Because you're going to hear a lot of stuff. But the way he put it to me, he said, you just got to know three things. You've got to know that everybody can do a better job than the president of the United States. Everybody's a great lover, and everyone can coach football.
Everyone can coach any sport, apparently.
Right. They're experts immediately. As soon as they paid their fee to get in there, that immediately makes them experts on the game. So, you know, of course, he's being facetious, but that taught me, have thick skin. Don't worry about what people are saying. Keep the course. Do what you got to do. So let's move on. Knowing with all that experience and that advice you now gave that young couple, would you guys done anything different? Would you have stayed the course just so you did? Was there anything different that you would have done?
I wouldn't have done anything different.
I probably could have been nicer at times.
Doug would go 100%.
100%.
No, I don't think there's anything I would do different. I think as the years go by, you learn a little bit more. You adapt a little bit differently. You get along a little bit better. But I don't think there's anything I or we would do any different now.
Okay. Lou?
I'm in it right now, so I don't think at this point...
You're kind of in the midst of it, huh?
In the midst of it. I don't think at this point there's anything I'd do different. I think maybe, be a little clearer with what my expectations were when it wasn't football season. And of course, before he took the head coaching position, we had long talks about what my expectations were, which I probably wasn't as clear in the beginning of things. But yeah, I think Michelle was spot on. You got to have good communication, because if not, you can't expect someone to
Just kind of know. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made some, well, let's say they're demands. I made some requests before he took this job. And basically, it's as simple as spend time with us and me and the kids
Right.
when it's not in football season. Again, he's a busy man in general. Aside from football, he's very involved in everything. But yeah, that was one of them. And I think that took me some time to learn.
Sure.
I think Kate nailed it too. Like, I think you adapt over it. Like, I don't know. I think it all happened the way it was supposed to happen.
Right.
I'm glad that you guys stand your ground, to be perfectly honest, because I think that, sometimes, there were times that I probably made Doug feel guilty, right? Like, especially when we had young kids, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I was doing this by myself sometimes, and like I said, I can be a little feisty and I say things sometimes. And so, I know that I don't want him to feel guilt. And I know the girls never wanted it. Like, they loved every aspect of it, So again, like, I wouldn't have done that any other way. I mean, I feel like what my girls got to, live, and I feel like they owned that school before they even got to that school,
Right.
So like half the time I'd go pick them up, they'd be in the wrestling room hanging out, So I don't know. Like, I feel like, again, like, I think Kate, hit the nail. Like, you adapt. And I think it all kind of happens the way it's supposed to happen. And yeah, you communicate, you learn, it's kind of marriage, right? Like,
Sure. Makes sense to me.
all of the stuff that we go through in a marriage.
Okay. So I played football, as all your spouses did when they were younger, and I'm sure they would agree that football made such an impact on their lives, which is probably another reason why they've coached for so long. And so that they could make some kind of impact to, pass that on to another young man. Knowing this, do you think that all that sacrifice that we talked about earlier, was that well spent? Was the juice worth the squeeze?
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, there were times that, like, Doug would call me and he'd say, I'm going to be late because he had to take a kid home to Mountain Ranch or West Point.
Right.
So that this kid could play football, right? I could probably get a little emotional about this. I think about what it would be like if we did not have these team sports and the coaches like you guys in our world. Like, I mean, I feel like we're all kind of in this together, and like, there's so many people who suffer, and I just think like these are the things that build self-esteem, they build community, they build, might be the difference of somebody going off to college or, making a future for themselves, or even, knowing what it might be to like work hard in a job. Right. And so, yeah, I always think, giving back, I mean, heck yeah. I just think like the sacrifice is well spent when you think about how many kids you guys have coached over the years. And I think about some of the letters. I mean, Doug being a teacher, some of the letters that these kids have written him and when they graduate, because they always do that, like, it's pretty incredible. So when you hear these kinds of things, I mean, what you guys do, it could make the difference of, a kid possibly going to prison or going to, I don't know, get a job, know what to do, what work ethic is, what hard work is, what inspiration means, what motivation means, and I think that comes through coaching, that comes through team sports. I mean,
I couldn't agree more.
Competition, all of that. So definitely, I would say yes.
Ladies, anyone else?
I mean, I agree with Michelle. I think everything that she said was exactly, why we all love watching our husbands do it, especially in a small town.
Yeah.
It's really nice to run into the ones that are still around and the ones that are just up here to visit family. And yeah, they all, I feel like, have some really good stories about all of their coaches and also have some really good memories, and definitely take that with work ethic. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so many times that I'll have an ex-player come and see me on the sideline, come give me a big hug and tell me a story about what's going on in his life now. And it's kind of a weird thing, and it's a weird dynamic because you put in a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of sacrifice from your family, from your own family to help these young men. And a lot of the times it's delayed gratification. I'm not going to know that I really helped that kid until like 10 years later or 7, 8 years later, and he comes back, right? So that's kind of an interesting dynamic that you got to put in all this work, and you'll eventually see down the road that you're doing the right thing and then you did something good. Quick story. I had a kid, I used to coach at Rite of Passage, which was a reform school for the kids that are like in trouble, juvenile hall kids. And this young man was from East LA, born and bred in gangs, and that's all he ever knew. And he played football for me and turned his life around. And one day I ran into him in town, and he's married, has a son, is working, moved away from that area, lives out in this area now, and gave me the biggest hug and had tears in his eyes when he was talking to me and was introducing his son to me. And just like that touched me in a place. It was just like, oh my gosh, in my heart, that was like, I helped change this kid's trajectory in his life. His life completely changed because he came out and he played football. And so to me, that's like, yeah, definitely. I think the sacrifice was worth it was worth it.
And I think if you can help one out of 100, well, heck, like great, and I just think that the impact is even far greater than that.
Yeah.
So I agree.
You got anything?
The juice is worth the squeeze.
It was worth it?
Sacrifice, for sure. Wouldn't change it at all.
Okay. Is there anything out there like, myths, misconceptions, or anything that, most people may not know on what it's like to be part of a football family that you want to share? Do you guys have been around it for so long, it's all common knowledge to you. But is there something out there that you think people like, no, that's not, you want to correct that? Is there anything out there like that you guys want to?
I mean, I think it is a lot of work. There's a lot of mind power, strategizing. You're looking at different skill sets, different role play. And I think, again, like you said, right, everybody it can be a football coach. Everybody's a football coach. And I just think like that is actually not true, right? There is a lot that goes into it. And I feel like it is so important to like remember that, because I just feel like when we were talking about, and you're so easy to come to a football game and you're seeing 2 hours, like Lehu has said, and you're just sitting in there thinking that they should be running this, or they should put this kid in that position, or but who knows what happened through the week. It's 5 days, it's 4 days of practice and a game on Friday, right? And so I don't know if that kid showed up late, I don't know if they decided to sit on the sideline for the day.
Is he dealing with an injury?
Or you know what I mean? Like somebody else got hurt, so now you have to switch. I mean, being part of a team is that you make sacrifices for your teammates, right? And so I feel like, like if you could just want to show up at a game and think that of everything that goes, like that is not the case. There is so much time spent strategizing and coming up with a game practice plan and coming up with a game plan, and you practice for that game plan for the entire week. And so it is a frustration for me, because I think like not anybody can just go to, I would not like at all think that I could just jam down onto the field and coach football. Like I look at what Doug does sometimes, and I'm like, man, you have to be smart to play football. I couldn't remember all of these plays, and I just think like that is very frustrating for me, because you guys have been doing this for years. You played it, you like watch it, you look at things to make you better, you talk to one another about making each other better. And I just, those are the things that just drive me crazy, because I would not put myself in a situation for 1 second and think I'm an expert at how to coach football or anything else that I have no experience doing, right? And that drives me crazy. So yeah, that is something that might be a thing that I wanted to like put out there.
I love it. No, you can't coach football. Deal with it.
Exactly.
Anybody else?
Stop being a critic.
Well, I don't have any myths or misconceptions, but I do have something to add when it comes to a football family.
Yeah.
So a football family is us here doing this podcast. A football family is the kids that are out there on the football field during practice till 7 o'clock. Football family also includes the kids, the grandparents, mom and dad, people who don't even live in this county. Football family is everyone who wants to listen and see. All the five senses. That's a football family in my eyes.
Yeah, and fully encompasses the parents and
All of it.
the community and everybody that's in support of them. All of them that show up on Friday night and for cheering for those kids. And, they work hard. They put in a lot of work to prepare for that season in the weight room, running, practicing. Those kids put in a lot. And so, fully encompasses the full gamut, everybody.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I just want to add that, I think that we should feel very fortunate to have good coaching. That's what I feel. I think that as my kids have grown up, we've been fortunate to find good coaching and not such good coaching. And I think that the difference. And I think that people should be very grateful for our Calaveras coaching staff. Just truly, regardless, sometimes your kid might not play. Sometimes your kid might not be the best, right? But just know that you're going to be getting so much more out of it than playtime.
Right.
I carry so much of everything I learned playing team sports, into my life today. And you're going to get so much out of it. It pays forward regardless, right?
Yeah.
And not to mention, a little bit of humility, a little bit of humble pie, a little adversity.
Teaches you a lot.
It teaches you a lot.
You
So,
bet.
people should be really feeling, because I don't feel that we have that luxury anymore. I don't think that we have the best coaching like we did when we were growing up. And I think that, the fact that these guys commit and put in so much work and are good at what they do, hey, man, just be grateful for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's so many different reasons, too, as why it's harder now to get good coaching. And, I mean, that's a whole other topic and a whole other podcast.
Sometimes it's a thankless job, right? Yeah.
So, the time to getting off of work and time to be able to do it, the job you have, there's so many different dynamics involved in whether or not, who's going to be the pool of people that we're going to be able to choose from to be able to do the job. So I couldn't agree more. So thank you so much for saying that. And you're right. The Calaveras football staff is a class act. They are one of the best out there. They just redid the Motherlode League, so I'm looking forward to the upcoming season. So we've got some teams back in the Motherlode, like Linden. We've got some new teams coming into the Motherlode. One of the things, Coach Miller, who's been a coach at Linden High School for a very long time, I ran into him and talked to him, and he had to explain to the Linden coach, who's never been in the Motherlode. He's been in this other league, and they've had some success. And now they're coming back into the Motherlode League. And the first thing Coach Miller said is, these coaches in the Motherlode League are very smart. They're well-trained. They're very smart. And a lot of what you've been maybe getting away with over there, you're not going to get away with in this league. So strap on your boots and be ready to go. And I think he called it right. So we're just about out of time. I want to thank all of you so much for coming out today and spending your time with us. So thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here. So thank you all out there for listening. Thanks to Michelle Clark, Kate Hoos, Lehua Mosa, and Anna Valtiera for taking the time out of their schedules and coming out here with us. Remember, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like for us to air in a future episode, follow us. You can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Let's Talk Football with Coach Val. You can now text the show a message under the send us a text message link in the podcast page you're using. And, of course, you can always shoot us an email at gilbertvaltiera@gmail.com. Until next time, we are out.
And it's intercepted. It's intercepted by number 22. That's Clifton. He's got the left edge. Turns on the Jets. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play. Up to a running back. That's Ferrante over to the right side. He cuts back up the middle. He's got room. One man to beat. He turns on the Jets. There he goes. Touchdown, Calaveras. What a play.